Well, if you couldn't tell by the opening, here we are again at another MOTUC Classics Director's Commentary from me, the former brand manager, Scott Toy Guru Neitlich. And if you couldn't tell from this passing image, today we're doing Double Trouble, a character who made it into the line, albeit slightly different from her vintage counterpart, even though she had, years of being in content and a record of being a toy and a cartoon character, and I guess this is like a color me own storybook or something. I don't know. Lots of stuff in the 80s. All right. So a lot of people asked why a character named Double Trouble with a nice rhyming name became Double Mischief when she was released in the Classics line. And well, it's actually kind of an interesting story, and that's what this YouTube video is all about. So first, let's take a look at the figure. Quite a figure indeed. Green is a character that we don't really get too much in the Heroic Allies, especially with that cool translucent cape. And she had a cool action feature. She was two-faced, good and bad. Well, she was a spy is what she was. So it wasn't that she was like schizophrenic like Moon Knight or something. It was more that she had the ability to look like a good guy or look like a bad guy so she could spy on the bad guys. Or maybe she was a good guy or a bad guy spying on the good guys, depending on how you played it out. Either way, she had a rotating face plate, which is a feature that we've seen before in Masters of the Universe, most notably in Man-E-Faces, who's called that because he has Man-E-Faces. And even though Man-E-Faces had three different faces, the human, robot, and monster, Double Trouble just had, or Double Mischief, two, human and human. But it was done the same way. It was just only room on the turning block for two. So on one side was the evil face with the eyebrows, and one was the good face with the slightly less evil eyebrows. And the Horsemen, being the awesome genius sculptors they are, also incorporated this concept into her accessory, your token Horde crossbow, which could reverse itself, like my raincoat. And you could take the little black top part there and turn it upside down, and then it was all green and disguised, because we all know members of the Rebellion also carried these crossbows. Oh well. All right, now, multiple faces and turning faces is actually something that Mattel has been doing for decades, and the reason it was so heavy in Motu and She-Ra lines in the 80s is because, well, they had just come out of the 70s when rotating faces were a thing Mattel put on a lot of different toys. Most notoriously in the Big Jim line, there were several characters that had sort of good and evil or angry and passive faces that worked the same way as Man-E faces. I think most notorious is the Captain Drake figure, because when you rotated his face from human to skull, well, you can clearly see the influence this figure had visually on the designs of Skeletor. So, yes, a skull-faced character with a purple hood, that's obviously, floating around the Mattel office. Whether or not the actual designers of Motu designed this figure, they definitely were aware of it. And you can see a lot of things from other Big Jim lines wound up in Motu. Things like the Whip's whip was literally picked up and used for Beastman, or Iron Jaw's features, eyebrows, and, well, overall look literally became Trapjaw. It happens, especially with unreleased figures. Designers want their concepts used. Can you blame them? So they recycle them. All right, so Double Trouble had yet again a recycled action feature, but it was very novel, it worked, and hey, why not? And she also is the winner of longest hair ever at this point. We hadn't yet gotten to some of the other characters that would outpace her, but between the long hair, the rotating crossbow, and the clear iridescent cape, green armor, she's a very stunning figure. Stands out really well. And, of course, being released on Masters of the Universe Classic, gets her own bio, a real name, because obviously her parents didn't name her Double Mischief or Double Trouble, and let's actually address that, because, yes, why is she called Double Mischief in Classics when she was called Double Trouble back in the day? This name obviously appearing in the bio, on the card, and on that beautiful mailer box, which had now changed to brown in order to save a few pennies here and there. Hey, anything to put more deco on the figures. Okay, so back in the 80s, you had Double Trouble on her nice pink card, and everything was great. Double Trouble is a name that has jumped around a lot in the toy industry. So going back to that whole Big Jim thing, yes, that was the name of the feature for the characters with the rotating faces. It was later used on a Hot Wheels Mighty Monster truck vehicle, although an S was added, but that doesn't affect the trademark. And it's also appeared on other companies' toys, most notorious the Double Trouble game, which took the game of Trouble and made it even more troubling because it was double trouble. Anything that is double is always more. I mean, that's how math works. But at the time of Double Mischief's release, the name was being used by Nerf. It was owned by Hasbro. Double Trouble was unavailable. So a new name had to be created. And obviously, anytime we use a new name, we want to really try to pay homage to the history of the brand. As an example, when we had to rename Flipshot Icarius, also because Flipshot was owned by Nerf, damn you Nerf, taking all of our good names, well, we used his European name, Icarius, which was actually the original name designed for the character. It was changed to Flipshot, but that's not important right now. So looking at the Princess of Power line, there were also foreign names used. So Frosto was known as Glacia, Double Trouble as Dubla. And as much as Dubla might have been a cool name to use, it just didn't feel right. So instead, turning towards the catalogs, the cross-sells, the mini-comics of the original Princess of Power line, one of the things that stands out is the characters aren't really battling for, good or evil or for, conquest or freedom. It's really more of kind of a toned down fight. I mean, even looking at, Catra, she's known as a jealous beauty. A lot of the storyline in the early Princess of Power stuff was all about jealousy, and Catra was always, she wasn't hurting people, she was just, quote unquote, getting into mischief. This was kind of her thing over and over again. She wasn't trying to, she never stabbed anyone or hurt anyone. She was causing mischief. It was her thing, man. So the word mischief showed up a lot in early Princess of Power material, from the mini-comics to the cross-sells to Mattel catalogs, etc., etc. It was a word that just popped up a lot. So when trying to come up with a new name for Double Trouble due to the ownership by said Nerf, well, looking at all of this, with Mischief being a name that is synonymous with early Princess of Power releases, Double Mischief felt like a good name. So there you go. She was Double Mischief. I mean, you knew she was Double Trouble, and if you wanted to call her that, you could. The only reason we use the name is because legally we couldn't. So that was how we came up with it, and that is how she got it. But hey, adding another female member to the Horde was awesome, and she could be both, Horde or Rebellion. A twofer! Almost like she was Double Trouble.